I want to talk to you today from the subject, if you will, and I hope it doesn't disturb you. For the love of God, no more excuses. For the love of God. In other words, if you love God, then you ought not be making a whole bunch of excuses. Amen? I am blessed to have a wonderful staff, and often I spend time with them even in preparation for preaching. And each one of them is uniquely gifted. And I give them leadway in the midst of the sermon preparation to help me. And so I can't take credit for all of the theology that I'm about to put forth. I have to credit Elnora, who is a wonderful biblical thinker. She's quite gifted at it. She doesn't know it, but she's got a gift, and I pray that God will keep her around me for a long time so that she can help me wrestle sometimes. The theology of original humankind and African creation's DNA. I was wrestling with this notion of DNA. And you know, science is good if it's used for the right purpose. But science can be bad when it is used as a tool of oppression. I know that many of you were in love with Bill Clinton, but Bill Clinton used this thing called DNA testing, whether he was aware or not, and it became a tool of oppression, and particularly for black men, those who had found themselves once incarcerated or twice incarcerated, were faced with something called 3 strikes, and you're out. And a lot of it was based on DNA testing, but that's not what I'm talking about. And if you listen long enough, you'll see that we have developed a different theology. We, Elnora and I, have developed, and I think it's worth putting out there. In the beginning, God created the earthling from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the spirit of life. And the earth man, made of dust, he is a living being, having free will and soul. God sparked awareness. The biblical witness of the Old Testament, the Genesis narratives, lends credence to the creation narratives, the origins of original black mankind created by God from the dust of the ground of Africa. The narrative tells of the garden east of Eden, 2 rivers, the Tigris, the Euphrates rivers. It is the Afro-Asiatic geographical location that gives further credence to the creation of original man and womankind on the continent of Africa. It was noted archaeologist and scientist Dr. Louis Leakey who scientifically proved that mankind's origins are African. Therefore, it is safe to surmise that original humankind is black-skinned in hue, while not Negro in nature. His physical characteristics are African in nature, and yet, in scope, he has been infused by Middle Eastern and Asian culture. So then, it was Dr. Leakey who clearly articulated that the original humankind is the source of life, as all humans share the same DNA makeup. If it is, then, the use of DNA testing in the area of forensic science that has been the tool by which the innocent have been set free, but likewise, those who have been innocent have also been found guilty, and the guilty go free while the innocent are incarcerated. However, what I am referring to with regard to DNA is not the scientific methodology above cited. Instead, I am speaking of the mystical odyssey of the creation and or the origins of man and womankind from in the beginning when God breathed into man the breath of life and man became a living being having a soul. Soul is more than snapping one's fingers and patting one's feet. It is the God nature. It is the spark. It is the divine intervention into the humankind. Whether God created the heavens and the earth is not a question. All living things, both man and beast, have been created by God. Whether God did it in 7 days or 7,000 years, I could care less. All I know is that God did it. And therefore, we must be in pursuit of care for that which God did. The Negro must understand that no one needs to tell us that we need to be ecologically sound. I've always remembered as black women swept the concrete of Baltimore and used Ajax to clean their marble steps. We've always been an ecological people. Why should we argue over 7 days or 7,000 years? As a matter of fact, God's thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are not our ways. His thoughts are higher than ours, even as the heavens are above the earth. But what we ought to be concerned with is God's created image to humankind. What I'm putting forth then is this notion that the humankind of black origin has a particular nature that is relevant to God. Our DNA is eternal. It's not just in our blood, but it's from on high. It is DNA that helps us to be who we are. When we understand the DNA, then we understand that we have been uniquely gifted by God, that God has given us a particular purpose, and if he has, then we stop living in the gutters of despair and depravity and act like, live like, walk like, talk like we have some God DNA in us. What we're talking about is not blood-born, it's God-born. It is in fact the divine natural attribute that God breathed into man in the beginning, and man became a living being or soul. In other words, if we are God's original creation, we must act like we are God's original creation. We must inhale and exhale as God inhaled and exhaled into us. And God breathed into his nostrils Adamah, and Adamah became a living being having a soul. Soul is more than hand clapping. Soul is about ethic and moral values. Soul is about understanding oneself in proximity to God. We must understand that when God breathes, we breathe. Can I go to the club now? When God moves, we move. Just like that. There is something about the humankind in black skin that has a contextual understanding of who God is. Because God is in our heart, he's in our mind, he's in our body, he's in our soul. He's on our lips. Even when we're in the nightclub snapping our fingers, we're moving to God's beat. Stop telling folk that God saved your soul and everything that you were, you forgot. That's not how God operates. When God saves your soul, he saves all of you. When God saves you, he saves you when he finds you. When God saves you, he saves the nature in you. The only thing is that he cleans it up and makes it into what he wants it to be. Or how many times were you in the nightclub? How many times were you leaning over a bar stool and you knew instinctively, intrinsically, organically that you were in the wrong place? How many times were you out there after mama and grandmama had prayed for you and you realized that something wasn't quite right? Or somebody ought to talk to me in here this morning. Because there is something in each of us that has something akin with God. Amen. There's a little God in the mix. Whether you like it or not, there's a little divine in you. Why? Because there has been a divine intervention in all of us. God found us where we were. He picked us up, turned us around, saved our souls, set our hearts and minds on fire. Jeremiah said it became like fire shut up in our bones. We could not hold our peace. The divine natural attribute is in essence what God is coming back for. I know you spend a whole lot of money planning for your funeral, but listen, you can keep that money and invest it in somebody that's worthwhile. Rather than worrying about how Scarborough's going to dress you up,